Let's take
If you ain't a Gator, you must be Gator bait. If you ain't a Gator, you must be Gator bait.
Welcome back and welcome in. This is If You Ain't a Gator. I got my man Dan Thompson from Stadium and Gale with me. I really appreciate you coming on, bro.
Absolutely, man. It was a pleasure meeting you a couple of months ago now, and looking forward to a good season ahead of us here.
Yeah, man. A great way to start. So we're going to have to start this off how we start off with everyone else before we dive really into this. But who is your favorite Gator of all time?
I grew up, I was born in the late 80s. So when I was growing up, my mom went to UF, my dad went to Ohio State. So we kind of grew up kind of cheering for both teams, but my mom kind of got us over to the Gator side as we were youngsters growing up. So Danny Werfel was a guy that I admired a lot. Those were kind of the formative years of watching football for me, you know, when you were 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. So Danny Werfel was the guy that sticks out for me. I followed his career, you know, with the Saints. I got a Danny Werfel Saints jersey. I followed him when he went over to NFL Europe with the Rhine Fire. And then he went over to go to the Packers next, and then he went to the Redskins. And then I had a Danny Werfel Redskins jersey, maybe the only person in America that had one. So that was a guy, and you know, he family grew up going to church and all that, so it kind of made sense. I never forget. I wrote to him when I was, 9 years old, and he sent me back 7 or 8 signed cards. So I still have them. I think back at my parents' house. So I got to find those. But just a guy that I grew up admiring, and then ended up going to the University of Florida, and then, got the chance to work on the football team. So admire a lot of those guys. A lot of those guys end up becoming friends back in that 06 to 2010 time frame. But I have to go back and look at Danny Werfel as being that guy.
I hear it. What a time to go to UF. I mean, good gracious. I couldn't imagine. I have talked about it big time. I went nuts for the Florida Gators, basketball national championship this past year.
Yeah.
I was alive and went through the 06 and 08, but I was still in high school, middle school, high school range. But I'm I don't know if I can contain myself winning a football national championship.
Yeah, man, it was cool. So I decided I was going to go to UF the day before. Coincidentally, they won the national championship in basketball. And I was never a huge basketball fan growing up. Obviously, I cheered on the Gators as they were going through that process, but I decided to go to UF the day before. And so that was a really cool first, I'm a Gator, full-time Gator there. But yeah, go on to campus. I started in summer. So during that time, just a quick little story here. One of my best friends growing up lived over at Springs, one of the dorm rooms there, and his neighbor across the hall was Jermaine Cunningham and Dustin Doe, so defensive end, and then the linebacker there. So we ended up becoming friends, and so we would play cards together late at night, whatever. So I'm walking on campus. I don't know, there's maybe a week or two left of summer classes, and we run into each other right by the football facility, and him and I get to talking to Emily Heater, who Chuck Heater is her father. He coached defensive backs at the University of Florida. And so she came up to me, to Jermaine, definitely not to me, came up to talking to Jermaine. And then Jermaine had to run, I think, into the weight room. And then Emily and I started talking, and she was overseeing recruiting. And, they were looking for some students to fill some student assistant jobs there for the fall. And so she said, here's the application. Here's what you do to apply. And she said, do you follow football recruiting very much? And I said, no, not really. She's like, good. We don't want people that are just like fans of recruits. We want, people that are interested in doing all of the other things, right? Because it's, there's a lot of compliance. There's a lot of running around, a lot of organization. So while you get to stand on the sidelines and in the end zone for the football game, it's not just talking to recruits and kind of pumping their tires, if you will. So my freshman year, actually, all 4 years, but my freshman year, I got the chance to be around those guys as they were on a path to the national championship, and I didn't make it out to Glendale, watched the game at the O-Dome, and then we stormed University. And I don't know if I think they did it after the basketball national championship, but it definitely wasn't like it was in football. And they had or was it? Yeah, like it was in football. They had no idea what was going to happen to University. So that was nuts. A couple months later, we do it again in football. And then the next year, Tebow wins the Heisman. The year after that, they do it again. And this time, they had at least greased the poles and everything else, so people weren't jumping on the light post. But man, a hell of a time to be there. And but I'll say this: the national championship that they just won in basketball might be my favorite, just because of just the team aspect of it, kind of how unexpected it was at the beginning of the year and how likable those guys are. But yeah, man, it was an awesome time to be there.
Yeah, that's so sick. I've talked about it too, how like just being like the 06, 08, even 07. Like I know that 07 didn't even go nowhere near as planned, and playing, I'm pretty sure we played Michigan in like the Outback Bowl that year, and Tebow at the Heisman ceremony with the freaking cast on. But those were like amazing years. I remember the basketball years, and I've talked about it too, how like getting to experience this basketball national championship, like with my son and even my wife being there, like, it's kind of crazy how like you just have these different moments. But yeah, I've even watching the basketball and just watching on like TikTok and all that, where you see everybody in the O-Dome celebrating. I'm like, man, we should have taken the trip. We should have went up there for it.
Yeah, I had an unbelievable week that week, and that kind of started it off. The next day, I went up to the Masters for a couple days, and right after that, I flew from Atlanta to Mexico for a work trip. So it was just it was a pretty awesome week. But I'll say this: I had the chance to meet with Todd Golden a couple months before the season started. He was down in Sarasota speaking with the Sarasota Gator Club. So I drove down there, and with Stadium and Gale, they'll, I guess, like appease me if I say, hey, are you guys doing media availability? I would imagine now there's going to be a few more people from the media, but it was just me, him, and Kelly Ray Finley, and then a couple of the ops people that were there. So we did an interview, posted on Stadium and Gale, whatever. After that, him and I are chatting. It's like, this is off the record. I was like, yeah. And I was like, well, how do you think you guys are like realistically going to do? He's like, man, I don't know if we're going to be as talented, but we've got a much better team this year. He's like, I definitely think we're going to make it to the Sweet 16. He's like, then after that, who knows? He's like, but I definitely think the Sweet 16. I was like, do you think you have the horses to win it all? He's like, not right now. He's like, we could if they all come together. But it was just a really cool conversation to look back in hindsight to be like, man, they even exceeded their own expectations. So that's really, really cool. And shout out to the boys for winning that national championship, and obviously Todd Golden.
Yeah, I think that a big thing with that team is too, and it's kind of what I'm seeing with the football team this year. I would love for the Gators to go win a natty in football this year. I don't know how I'd contain myself, but I think a big thing is being on all of the social platforms, you see people kind of, they have their own opinions of the team. And one of the things I saw was a guy post a TikTok that the Gators football team posted. And I just simply commented back, and I'm like, the Gators basketball team did it all year, and how did that end? Mm-hmm. Because I think that it's a way of like, that's what we're old now, but that's what, they're wanting to do right now. They're wanting to make the dancing TikToks. They're wanting to go viral. And I'm like, they're coming together because you see different teammates with different teams. They're all doing it. And it's just a simple way of just coming together. I feel like.
Yeah. I think a lot of people think that athletes are just robots, right? That there's a limit to how much you're allowed to work out per week. There's a limit to how much you're allowed to practice during the week, especially during the season. But they're going to be together. Like, it's not like it's taking away any time from them doing anything else, right? Like, they're 18 years old, 19 years old, 20 years old. Let them do their thing. You may not get it, and that's fine. It's probably not for you if you don't get it. It doesn't mean that they're distracted. It doesn't mean, it would be like, somebody is scrolling social media at work, right? Why aren't you working if you're on social media? Or if you're behind on a project at school, or you're behind a project at work and you're like watching TV, it's like, well, why are you watching TV? It's like, you're allowed to do some other things in life. It doesn't mean that you're not focused. It just means that, like, it's okay to have fun every once in a while.
Yeah. It's okay to get away from, I think that's where it does kind of, everyone expects everyone to have the same love and passion. And I guess that's the thing, is like what you do every day. If you do that every single day, you might end up hating it. Like, if you don't do something very simple just to get away from it, do something that distracts you, whether it be video games or reading or whatever you do, you need to distract yourself. And I'm like, honestly, how long did it take them to make the TikTok anyways? In all reality.
One of the things that I thought was most interesting, and I know you got a lot of other content that you want to talk about. One of the things that was most interesting when I worked at the football recruiting office is you get to know these guys personally, right? And you start to talk to a lot of them. Probably 95% of them don't love football as much as the average fan does, let alone the fanatic, right? I remember, talking to Dominic Easley and a few other guys, and I was like, well, like, who's your favorite NFL team? They're like, well, I don't watch football. I'm like, you don't watch football at all? He's like, no, I'm just good at football. And that's, where I'm going to put my energy into, but I'm not a fan the same way that most fans are. A lot of them don't root for colleges the same way you do. They don't root for NFL players the same way that you do. And they might like an NFL player, not because of his style, but because of his social media or his TikTok. Right. So, I think that there's a pretty big disconnect between, a lot of these guys that people are like, you should only do this all the time. It's like, well, if you're an accountant, then that's what you should do all the time. Then well, it's like, that doesn't make sense. Right. Yeah. So like, it's okay that these kids have lives. So.
Yeah, I'd rather them kind of have that, something that they can ease their mind. I just feel like it makes them play better. And like I said, even with TikTok, I'm like, it takes them 5 minutes to make a TikTok, if that. I mean, they're literally just dancing on it for 30 seconds. They post it. Like, I don't really get it. I'm cool with it, especially because they're college age or some of them are even younger. And I'm like, let them do what they want to do. Let them play video games. I don't care what they do. They're young.
They already have an abnormal college experience. Like, let them do something that's somewhat normal, right?
Exactly. Well, diving into the Gators, I want to kind of get your thoughts of the LIU game. Just overall thoughts, kind of how you felt about the offense, felt about the defense, things as such.
Yeah, obviously, you win 55-0. LIU is a bad team, right? They're probably going to go 3-9, 4-8. They're not very good, and Florida found themselves in a precarious situation, which is why they had to play that game. You win 55-0. You commit 0 penalties. You have 0 turnovers. You allow 0 sacks, and you allow 0 points. It's the first time they've ever done that in history. So that's pretty awesome, right? That's what you want. There's huge areas of opportunity, right? I've brought it up on Stadium and Gale, and I feel like I was kind of the only one hitting this drum. But DJ Lagway hadn't played 11 on 11 up until 2 weeks ago for 8 months. Right? It was Tulane was the last time he did it. No matter how much he's throwing, no matter how much he's in the film room, no matter how much he's studying the playbook, there's still going to be rust. And I think we saw a little bit of that. He still went, 15 for 18, 3 touchdowns. So that's going to get better over time. You're replacing a right tackle in Brandon Crenshaw-Dixon, who I thought was very solid for the Gators last year. And so that needs some improvement. That right side of the offensive line is certainly an area of opportunity for the Gators. I thought Jaden Ball played outstandingly. I thought it was great to see the tight ends be used a little bit more. Got a couple touchdowns out of them. Obviously, Vernell Brown was great. We saw 14, I think, receivers get involved in the game. So that's what you want to see. You want to see these guys get opportunity, and everybody came out healthy. Defense played incredibly. People were asking about certain players. Did they play? And it's like they did. They just didn't throw the ball, so you didn't see them. But George Gums had a great game. Florida was missing Pup Howard. I thought Jaden Robinson played outstandingly, and I think it's now Jaden Robinson's job, right? I think Pup Howard is now the guy that might come off the bench, but you're going to get some guys that are going to be back this upcoming week against USF, and I think the Gators are going to continue to get better. I know that there's reason to be somewhat concerned about things, right? The crispness of the offense wasn't there. Eugene Wilson had 5 catches for -1 yards and a touchdown, right? You want to see Eugene Wilson get used a little bit more, but I think we should use week 1 as an opportunity to just observe rather than make season-long decisions on how the year is going to go, and just enjoy it. It was a 55-0 win. You did what you were supposed to do against the team you're supposed to do it against. So there's certainly areas of opportunity going into the USF game and the LSU game after that, but 55-0 is nothing to shake your head at. Right.
I agree. I think the big thing that I've really been don't get me wrong. I tweeted out and I said I was frustrated a little bit because of Billy's offense. And I think I got kind of caught up in the moment with it. But a few things. Number one, he's not going to show his hand against LIU. The second thing is look around the country. We're not the only team that played a bad team. You had multiple teams that played bad squads, and they got scored against. LIU, I don't even think they got across the 50, and if they did, it was late fourth quarter that they got across the 50 against us. And we did what we were supposed to do, and that's the biggest thing. Beat them soundly, put points on the board, no matter how it was. And you did what you're supposed to do. And I think that's where a lot of people, I'm like, what, do you want us to go out there and put up 120? Do you not know who Billy Napier is? Yeah. He's not going to do it. Like, he's not going to do that. He's not. If he has respect for everybody and every coach that's in college football. And any coach at any level, he has respect for him. And I just don't think he's your Urban Meyer, your Kirby Smart, these guys they're going to disrespect you. They're going to put their cleats on your neck and they're going to push down until you just can't take it anymore. And even go ahead.
They threw a touchdown with 40 something seconds left. Right. So I don't know how much more you could have, expected out of them offensive wise. I think LIU threw 7-8 passes in the entire game. So they were running. They allowed 2 first downs. One was on the first drive. I think second or third play of the game. And then they went the entire rest of the half and early into the second half without getting another first down. And then they went the entire rest of the game without having one. Right. So solid defensive performance. DJ Lagway, again, getting comfortable, getting used to these wide receivers, again, getting used to the pace. And, certainly I don't know enough about, Billy Napier mentioned that LIU threw some different looks at them than they had on tape. I don't totally know I didn't scout LIU last year, but they obviously had to make some modifications. And certainly when you look back at this game, you can look at things that you can do better. Bryce Lovett can do better, or Damian George or Cam Waits or whomever you want to blame on the right side of the offensive line there. Are these guys motivated against LIU the same way they will be against the USF or an LSU? I don't know. That's not an excuse, but Florida's offensive line got better as the year went on last year. Austin Barber was the best offensive tackle in all of college football last year on Pro Football, or last week, on Pro Football Focus. So there's a lot of people to complain. There's a lot of reasons that they should have done this or they should have done that. No game's going to be perfect. College football is not the NFL. There's never going to be a perfect game. So, I want people to remember that, you won the game 55-0. You saw an entire half with Tramel Jones, who was third string or fourth string a couple weeks ago, moved his way up. He looked comfortable. So there's a lot of positives to take away from the game. It's just the aura around the game post game was like, oh, that wasn't good enough. It's like, dude, it was 55-0.
Yeah. And I think the perfect thing you said right there is like, and it's not an excuse, but it's just the reality of life. You golf, I golf, we've different sports that have been played. If you go out to shoot around a golf, you're shooting 18 holes and you're taking your buddy who does not golf, he's borrowing your clubs, whatever. You are not going to go out there and play the same round of golf that you're going to play against someone who plays and they play consistently. You're going to try harder against the guy who comes out there with his bag and he's got the golf, the golf cleats on, and you're going to play harder against that person than the Joe Schmo that comes out and plays you, who is like, okay, yeah, they might like it, but it's like there's a reason that you're here and we're here, and that's just the reality of it. I hate to be that guy, but it's like you're playing for LIU for a reason. Hopefully you can show that like a couple of y'all have talent to hit the transfer portal and move your way up. Cool. Like I hope that for you, but there's a reason that you are playing for Long Island University and these guys are playing for the Gators in the SEC.
Right.
And I think that's my biggest takeaway. Yes, I was frustrated at first, but I'm like, you really have to think about that. Did they really go in there going like, yo, like we got a squad on the other side, or hey, we're Pyburn's on the other side on the defense right here, and he's playing for LSU. Like he left us. We got to make sure we run through him. there's no. Yeah, there may have been a little bit with them stepping on our logo and the TikToks. Okay, but it's still LIU. I'm like, they knew as well as we knew that no one was stopping Jaden Ball. Lagway is not going to try to pinpoint accurate. He hasn't did 11 on 11. I just don't think that the takeaway from it should be what people are freaking out over. I'm like, again, did you want us to go score 120 points? I don't know what you expected.
Yeah. I mean, they left 9 points on the field. Obviously, you want to see that get a little bit better. Trey Smack has a new holder for the first time in his career. So at UF, so, working on some of those things, and hopefully, that gets better. You can look back and say there's areas of opportunity to get better, but you won the game 55-0. You didn't really do a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
The offense itself is, not going to change. I know a lot of people expect, that this is kind of a make or break year and they're going to do things differently. It's like, this is Billy Napier's offense, right? It is similar. I'm not comparing them, but it is similar to the Mike McDaniel offense, the Kyle Shanahan offense. Like, it's that style of offense. So if you want to see what it's run like on an accelerated level, like, go watch the NFL. Billy Napier, I don't think he'd mind saying this, is like not either one of them as a play caller, but that's the offense that you're going to see, what you've seen the last 3 years. It's not going to change drastically. A lot of people want these 4 wide sets and everything else. It's just like, that's not Billy Napier. Hopefully we see a little bit more of it. They have, some Ferraris in the wide receiver room, but, to expect massive change is just, you're just hoping for something that's probably not going to exist.
You're not going to get it
under Billy Napier, right?
Yeah. I think that's the thing too, is that, are you going to get more throws when Dallas Wilson's out there? Of course you are. Like, you're going to get, and again, you're going to get players that are going to get up to play when they play better competition. They are not going to play LSU or Texas. They're not going to play those guys the way they played LIU. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
But I think they're going to get up a little bit more for USF. I hope so, because I think that USF does have a quarterback that can score pretty quickly, and he's lightning quick, and he's not going to run the ball the same way as LIU did. But you got to let this all kind of gel out. You got to let it iron out. And again, I think that's the biggest thing. No one's showing that hand. If you think that Billy Napier is going to go out there and be like, hey, we got a massive playbook and we're going to show you everything we're going to use against LSU, we're going to show it against LIU. Absolutely not. You have never even touched a football if you believe that. I can't get behind it.
You saw slightly different, with Tramel Jones. And, I think that is probably a product of him getting, a little bit more playing time, this offseason than DJ Lagway. But again, the offense is what it is. Florida is going to do some different things against USF. They're going to do some different things against LSU. They're going to do some different things against Miami. It's going to build on itself, and you want to make sure that fundamentally you're sound, and right now, because of the situation on the right side of the offensive line, Florida's got a very strong run block group. Pass blocking might be another issue. So that might dictate the way that you call some of this offense. They allowed 11 tackles for loss this game. That's pretty unacceptable. And a lot of those were on screen passes and bubble screens. So does that potentially change? Maybe, right? Because now you've learned. Now you have a little bit of data on this particular team. It's not last year's team. You're taking over a lot of people from last year into this year, but it is a different team. And so you're going to adjust and modify based on that. But there's a lot of people that were mad. And I just realized that, people get like 12 to 16 weeks a year to watch your favorite football team, right? And some people are like, wow, this is really cool. I get to do this for 12 or 16 weeks. And there's some people that are like, damn it, I have to do this for 12 or 16 weeks. This sucks.
Yeah, it is. That's true. It's just, man, I feel like this is the thing too, is that when you play great teams, we watched Miami versus Notre Dame. Miami had to dig deep into the bag to be able to win that game. And that's just being honest. Whereas we knew, okay, a dive play or whatever, a stretch play to Jaden Ball, and just let him do his thing. Let Jackson do his thing. Throw a screen pass. Do I think that Eugene Wilson should be getting tackled behind the line of scrimmage when he's got yak on his back plate? No, I don't believe that. I do think that he should make something happen. I think he needs to give the back plate to Vernell Brown. But regardless of what the situation is, I'm like, there's a reason behind that stuff. And I'm like, I feel like people immediately, as soon as this game was midway through, I'm like, what did you just forget last year? Like, we've been talking all year that there's better weapons out there and we can win ball games against great teams. But you're just like, I'm like, there's a reason we're sitting here. There's a reason I'm on a podcast talking and I'm not up at UF in Billy Napier's seat coaching. Like, you got to let stuff be what it's going to be.
Yeah, no, but I mean, shout out to Eugene Wilson. It is a hell of a touchdown grab, right?
Yeah.
So those things are opportunities to get better, and you're going to do different things, and just enjoy it, right? I mean, if it doesn't work out, then it doesn't work out, and we do this song and dance again. But let's enjoy it. It was a 55-0 win with 0 penalties, which I think is really important, right? They didn't have to call any stupid timeouts because they didn't have the right personnel on the field. They committed 0 penalties. You didn't notice a lot of people in the game because they weren't needed, right? Like, that's what you want to do, right? You won 55-0. There's no difference of winning that game 55-0 or 63-0 or 70-0 or 77. Like, you could go on and on. At like, what point is it going to satisfy? It's like, well, they should have, scored a touchdown on every play. It's like, well, it's unreasonable at best.
Yeah. A touchdown on the first play of every single drive. They want Lagway throwing a 90-yard bomb for a touchdown, which, like you said, it's not necessary. It's not what it needs to be. But so, okay, I was talking about this last week on Thursday, right before the season started, that I made a comment about how I believe that if you see Tramel Jones run out there as a QB2, not to fully believe that I think that it would be Billy Napier kind of seeing what he has there. I think he knows what he has in Aiden Warner, but I think I kind of changed my tune on that only because we saw Tramel for so long. And like, Aiden did not trot out there. So are you in the belief, like I am now, that Tramel Jones is going to be official QB2? Yeah.
And Nick on our podcast, he gets a chance, now that the season started, he talked about it yesterday. Tramel Jones has been practicing as the 2 for the last week and a half or so. So I had the belief that if it was just a minor injury or, DJ had to come out, that Aiden Warner would go in. But if there was some sort of longer term injury, like maybe it makes sense to go to Tramel. I think no matter what, Tramel Jones comes out as your number 2 right now. And I feel comfortable, right? And then, it might be a short leash on him, but I thought that he stood in the pocket well. I thought that he went through his progressions well. I thought he threw a really pretty spiral. So, I think that he's got, especially with the amount that he's had to practice with the guys that are on the field now, he has a lot of that chemistry already. He's been with the program for 9 months and has been throwing to a lot of the guys that are on, the field right now. So I think Tramel is going to be your number 2. I mean, obviously Billy Napier might have a different idea, and maybe this was all a song and dance, to get fans excited about what the future is. But yeah, no, I think he's going to be that number 2. And I'll tell you what, if he is that number 2, Florida's going to have to do something to keep him around for at least one more year.
I know. I was thinking that too, because
get the checkbook ready.
Yeah, you got to do something. And honestly, I think it's worth it though to keep that quarterback room, to keep it kind of loaded. You got to have someone back there. But I do feel like, and I could be wrong about this, but I do feel like Billy's bringing in guys who, yes, they want to get paid. I think all these young bucks want to get paid, but I also think he's bringing in someone who's more about the team. They're more about being a Gator. They're loving the way of like who they're around, what they're around. Like, they're creating bonds with everyone that's there. And it's not, there's some of them, your Jack Pyburns, your Etienne's, you got those guys, but I think some of those guys, you got to cut the dead roots to keep growing. And I hate to say it that way, but some people are me players. And it's more every single day. I feel like it's becoming more and more just obvious the team that he's putting together and the people that he's bringing in. And so that's why I'm excited for it. You see him play true freshman. I'm not worried about if Trammell, comes in there. I don't know. I love the way that this team is looking. But with that, who do you think we can expect that didn't play against LIU? Who do you think we could expect to play against USF?
I think Caleb Banks will play against USF. I think Dallas Wilson should be back. Probably those. I think Pup Howard will be back as well. So I think some of the injuries are not unexpected. If you were, and Billy Napier is not going to release an injury list until he has to, and I don't believe he's going to release a depth chart this entire season. And so with that in mind, there's some injuries. Fletcher Westfall was a guy that maybe Gator fans didn't know was injured, and that's probably on purpose for Billy Napier. So I think you're going to get a couple of those guys back. I think if you would have played USF, in week one, or played Miami like you did last year in week one, he would certainly have played in that game. So I think you'll start to get most of them back, but if not, they'll should all be pretty healthy by LSU.
You think Dallas Wilson would have played week one if it had been a Miami?
I don't know, just because he did actually have a cast on his leg. So I think that there's still some acclimated time that you need to get back and get comfortable, just cardio shape and everything else. So I don't necessarily think so. But I think you saw what you have in Vernell Brown too. So, and Dallas Wilson's supposed to be better. So there is only one football. So I thought Vernell, definitely earned his stripes and the opportunity to get more of the ball in game one.
Yeah, I agree. I think the thing, I just saw, I think it was yesterday, Dallas Wilson posted a picture on his Instagram story of him, dressed out. And I don't know if those are old pictures. You never know. But even if we don't see him against USF, I kind of hope we do a little bit, just because I don't want his first game to be against LSU.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that if he's as talented as they say, I don't really think it's going to fully matter. I think a lot more lies on if, say, DJ, if his first game was against LSU. I think we saw against LIU why that would have been really, really, really bad. Mm-hmm. I just don't – that's not a team that you can overthrow passes and miss Vernell Brown being wide open. If we're being honest here, Vernell shouldn't even had a chance to make the amazing catch that he did, just because DJ probably should have saw him earlier. And that's me talking from the stands, being an armchair, quarterback. But there's got to be some kind of bringing them in there. And that's kind of why I'm hoping that Dallas Wilson plays a little bit. I hope that Caleb Banks, but those are just positions I don't think you fully need what Lagway did. And so I think it's like kind of a selfish thing. We all wanted to see Dallas Wilson, wanted to see that debut and this stuff that we've talked about since he's been on campus. But I don't know. That's not a position I'm too worried about. Vernell Brown showed a lot of himself. But with that being said, who do you think we saw? Vernell Brown was the one for LIU. Against USF, who do you think is going to be that breakout player that everyone on the timeline is going to be talking about the following week? And, defense, offense, both, whatever you feel.
I mean, I think if Jaden Ball does what he did against LIU and he can do that against USF, I think Jaden Ball has a different gear this year.
Yeah.
He was making things happen, right? And now there's the step up between LIU to UCF is a lot further than the step up in talent from USF to Florida, right? So, will he be able to do what he did against USF? I certainly hope so. He seemed to play with a different gear. And I think that Jaden Ball by the end of the year is going to be a household name in the running back room. And so I'm looking forward to seeing him. I think that it's going to be really, really important with a running quarterback in Brown, who 2 seasons ago, him and Jaden Daniels were the only 2 quarterbacks with over 3,000 rushing yards, or 3,000 passing yards and 800 rushing yards. So you're going to have to contain him a little bit, right? So there's going to be a little bit on your George Gums and your Tyree Sapps to keep him engaged there, but there's going to be a lot of movement from that linebacking group, right? I think that you are exceptionally talented in that linebacker group. So this is an opportunity for Miles Graham, right? He's stepping in as that middle linebacker, and he's going to have to notice some things. He's going to have to call some things out. It's going to be important that the team plays sound fundamentally, but I think a lot of it really depends on your outside edges to make sure that you're keeping him contained and forcing him to throw the ball. Because I think Devin Moore, Dijon Johnson, and Cormani McLean can do a really good job guarding their wide receivers. The problem is if he's running around for 4, 5, 6 seconds, no matter how good you are as a cornerback, there's going to be opportunities for these guys to get open. So you have to help collapse that box and force him to throw or force him to make a bad decision rushing the ball.
Right. And I think looking ahead to USF, it is very easy to be a box score warrior and just kind of that's what you're checking. You're looking at the score, you're different things like that. But I'm like, if I actually I watched the game from, the whole game, and I'm like, Boise State was in their territory numerous times. So I'm like, we're going to be able to move the ball against them. And don't get me wrong, they move the ball too, but our defense is not going to let some of those passes fly. It's just not going to happen. And yes, do I think we've been notoriously bad for stopping mobile quarterbacks? Do I think he's going to run against us? Do I think we're going to hold them to 0? No, I don't think we're going to hold them to 0. They're most likely going to score. Would I like to hold them to 0? Of course. But I think that, again, you're right. It's going to be on our D-line. You got to have those guys go in there. They got to swarm them. They got to suffocate them. You got to put pressure on them. But I don't think that, it's not going to end up being – I don't think it ends up being a nail biter to the fourth quarter. Do I think they can compete with us for a little bit? Yeah, because we got to figure them out. But I definitely think we contain them, and we're going to get up for USF more. These guys have been seeing the same thing. They read Twitter. They read, they know, oh, look what they did to Boise State. This is not an Ashton Genty Boise State team that walked in the USF.
No, I mean, they Boise State should not have been ranked 25th. I think that they did that primarily because, the conference that they're in, they were in the playoffs last year. They lost 21 seniors last year, right? Like they lost most of their team. They lost a Heisman, trophy finalist, right? So of course you kind of have to throw them in there, but they're not the 25th best team in the country, and they were down early. I do like USF's quarterback. I think Alex Golish is a guy that, assuming that things go well, right? I think if Brown doesn't get hurt last year, Golish is probably off to another school this past offseason. Right. He runs that Tennessee offense from a few years ago with Josh Heupel. So, there's a lot of reason to be have not necessarily concern. I think that Florida's going to win the game, and I think they're going to, dominate, in the trenches. But you have to be careful, and they're going to throw things at you that other teams aren't. So how are you reacting, and what are you doing throughout the game to get better? But this is an opportunity against a team that has a very mobile quarterback that can also throw the ball, right? He's not just a feet first guy. So you have to be prepared. You have to be ready and use this as an opportunity to get ready for LSU. A lot of these guys played against these guys growing up in Pee Wee and, in 7-on-7. So, hopefully they take this, game personally. And, I still think the Gators win. I think that the spread is 16.5 or 17.5 right now. So, I still think that there's, a 2 touchdown, win for the Gators at least.
Right. And I guess my biggest concern is, are they going to be looking ahead to going to Baton Rouge next week? Is that what they're going to be looking at? Is we got Death Valley next week? You cannot look ahead. There's not a game now left on this schedule that you cannot, oh, well, this is the game we got next week. No, you got to focus on this week. And yeah, I think that USF definitely has the team to be able to drag us into deep waters if we're not on our P's and Q's. If we're not ready for them, if we're looking ahead to LSU, yes, they have that team. Alex Golish is an amazing coach. And like you said, I think that after this season here, I think that he's off to a bigger program. A quarterback that, again, he can throw. He is lightning fast, and he can obviously run you smack over if he wants to. He showed that run into the end zone. But if we have the team, I guess it's the biggest thing I've been harping on. If we have the team that we think we do, we should beat them by 2 to 3 scores easily.
Yeah, I think so. And, again, I don't want, fans to get super upset if this is still a relatively vanilla offense. It's obviously going to depend on, how well you're doing and everything else. But I still think that this is a run first team. I'd like to see, Jacoby Jackson. He didn't have a great game against LIU. So I'd like to see what we can see out of him, get a little bit better. But you're going to see less people than you saw this last game. And now it's an opportunity for you to hone in as you get ready for LSU. But, I don't think Florida has ever really been under Billy Napier, a team that's really had to look forward. I think that they have to realize, that they're on a 5-game winning streak and that Billy Napier does a pretty good job of kind of keeping it, within what that particular game is. They've not really ever been caught flat-footed against a bad team just because they're a bad team. They've been caught flat-footed because they've not been a good team before, right? So, I think that Florida now brings their best roster, into this season. But, I think Billy does a good job of keeping the noise out of the system. And I think, a lot of these guys have been around for a number of years where they're not used to just that next big win. It's like, let's get this win, right? Let's keep stacking on what we have. And, maybe that's a little coach speak, but, we've had the chance on the pod to talk to a lot of players, and they kind of have that mentality. Even when you talk to them off the record, it's like they really want to play hard for each other. And I do think that they look at each win as the most important and go and win the week and look what's ahead. Because there's a lot that can change, week from week. And the last thing that this team needs is for their, win to get taken out of their sails. And I think they're playing hard for each other. And I think they're playing really hard for the coaching staff as well. Yeah,
I agree. I think the 1-day contract is it's a big thing there. And you hear a lot of the players, any interviews or whatever, a lot of them that registers with them, like, you're playing for this 1-day contract. You're playing for today, or you're playing to be able to do it tomorrow. Like, you're not playing for a overall deal. Like, you're playing for right now. And I guess that's the biggest thing. You got to go into every single week, whether it's an LIU. And again, I still do, even saying, I still do believe that. Do I believe they gave everything 110% against LIU? No, I think some of them did. I think you got like your George Gums. I think that he's going to hit you no matter who it is. You could put someone's grandma on the offense and he's going to hit her just as hard as, he's going to hit anybody. And so that's just how he's built, is how he's wired. But you got to play every single game. I feel like fans got to just relax. Because if we win every single week, I don't care if DJ throws interceptions. I don't care how the offense looks. I don't care if at the end of that game, when there's all zeros on that clock, if Florida has a higher score than whoever we're playing, that's all I care about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, I think a lot of fans like to freak out about things, and they see wins and they see big wins. Most of them probably didn't watch the USF Boise State game, right? And that game was over pretty early over some mistakes, right? A lot of people are like, well, what if we lose, to USF? It's like, well, you're not playing. So what's the point of freaking out right now? I think that Florida is a big favorite for a reason. I think that they've got a better squad. I think they've got the pieces to go well and do well this season. And, again, it goes back to this idea of like, a lot of people just like to freak out for really no reason. It's like, sit back and enjoy. And, we'll evaluate week by week, but I think that Florida has the better team. A lot of people are super impressed with FSU, and I think that there's reason to be impressed by them, but I also don't think that they're this unbeatable monster. Same thing with Miami. They had to pull out all the stops against a redshirt freshman, right? They didn't look dominant. They have some dominant positions, but there's opportunities to win every game that's on Florida's roster, right? Like a few weeks ago, right? Go back to Friday night or Saturday morning. Everybody thought that Texas was going to be the best team in the country. They were favorites to beat Ohio State, and they have some guys. They have some pieces. They didn't look like the number one team in the country after that. That doesn't necessarily mean that Ohio State looks like this juggernaut either. It's week one of football. That's why you have to make observations in week one and start to make some evaluations in week 2, in week 3, in week 4.
Yeah. That's the biggest thing here is you have to just let it all play out. And Billy has said it time and time and time again that he's going to frustrate you. He's going to annoy you, but he has a plan and he executes that plan. Did last year go as we thought it would and as the fans thought it would? No, it didn't go as Billy thought it planned. If it went as Billy thought it was planned, he'd be undefeated, win the national championship,
Right.
and everybody would be happy. That's fine, but that's not the way it plays out. The hard part about this is I feel like a lot of us still live in the ages of the BCS, and you have a computer-generated system that if you don't win by 80 and that you lose one game, it's over. It's not how it is anymore. That's just not what it is. You play tough teams. This schedule is a gauntlet. I believe that we have the squad to go undefeated. I believe you're going to see a little bit more against USF. I could see some passes going down the field. I feel like people forget games like Samford, which I believe if last year's Samford team played this LIU team, I think Samford beats LIU. And we threw the ball deep against them. There's plays in the LSU game last year, the Ole Miss game, different games like that, the FSU game. We know it's in the offense. You think that Billy just forgot those plays just randomly through the offseason? He's like, oh, yeah, I forgot. I don't know how to run that play anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, come on, man.
And I'm looking forward to seeing how the season progresses, right? I think that you have some different skill players this year than you did last year, right? That's no slight on Shim DK and Elijah Badger, both of whom were outstanding for the Gators last year. But, you add in, J Mike, and if you can figure out Eugene again, and then you have Vernell, you have Dallas Wilson, Nashawn Montgomery, you kind of go down the list. And I thought, Tank Hawkins and Abrams played well when, in the game as well, when you needed them. And, they're deep and they're fast and they're speedy and they're tall and they can get open. And Jaden Ball is, in my opinion, going to be a better running back than Montreal Johnson. He's going to be a better running back than Trevor Etienne. I think Jacoby Jackson can be just as good. And so you have that two-headed monster, and then you just start to go deeper and deeper and deeper on your skill positions. Now it's a matter of looking at, can you make some improvements on the offensive line? Do you need to make a change on the offensive line? Mm-hmm. You don't do it after the first week. You start to look and evaluate, and you get more data points, right? And how do we modify and change the team throughout the year is what I'm looking forward to. But I think on the defensive line, they've got guys. I think they've got some really solid linebackers. I think they've got some good DBs. Depth, just like any school right now, is going to have some issues. But if they can stay healthy and they can figure out some of these smaller things, you have a more complete team now than you've had under any time under Billy Napier. And now it's a time for him to prove that he's the guy to lead the program forward.
Right. And, you got more depth. You have, I think that obviously, and I said this the other day, and a guy freaked out. I said it Sunday morning, and, I'm not saying that Tremel Jones is the level of DJ Lagway. I'm not saying that, but I'm like, we have depth there now. That I feel okay with Tremel coming in. I feel like Tremel can make throws happen. Do I think that he can make them against LSU? I don't know. I hope that we don't have to find that out. I hope that he's there. I hope he's got a headset, and I hope he's ready to go if need be, but I hope we do not see him. I don't want to see him for a couple more years, to be brutally honest. If he stays on the team, but there's depth all over. This team is absolutely loaded, and that's not just a Gator fan base. I think that last year, the Gator fan base was saying this team has something, this team this team that. And you saw at the end of the year that kind of rang true, but not at the beginning of the season. Whereas it's a different tune this year. The media sees it. Everyone sees it. Maybe it took the end of the season, but I just don't believe that. And I'll be honest with you, too. A lot of people are freaking out about the gauntlet there, that stretch of games. I'm glad that it's not kind of broken up over a stretch there, because that's where you have your trap games. Let's just go ahead and just run through the gauntlet and have everybody know, like, hey, you gotta do what you gotta do here for this 5-6 game stretch. But yeah, I just looking ahead to USF, I think that it's not going to shock me if we're going to come out of the first quarter and it's 10-10 or what, it's a tie game. But it also doesn't shock me if we come out of that first quarter and we're up 17-0. I just think that that's the way it is, and you got to go put teams away. But you had Notre Dame, who I can't remember who Notre Dame lost to. They lost to absolute nobody last year, and where'd they end up? I'm not saying that that's going to happen to us. People think that I'm talking like, oh, we're going to lose to USF. No, but you can drop a game and you can make it to where your end goal is. And if USF gives us a run, cool. Everything relax. These guys are going to get up and they're going to play even harder against LSU, against Texas. And I'll be 100% honest with you, I do not think Arch Manning, if he thought Ohio State was loud, he has no idea what he's walking into.
Yeah, I mean, and this is the thing, right? Like there's still so much time to figure out what this team's going to be and who continues to get better and who continues to get, who continues to develop. I think that there should still be a lot of excitement around Gator Nation. You've got an exciting home schedule this year. You've got a fun run. And, if the Gators are able to, go and do and handle their business, then they will have had the hardest track on the way to the playoffs, right? And that's going to be a battle-tested team. And I think a lot of it just goes back to the head ball coach that, Florida has right now. And, the rest of the staff there, how are they going to help deliver on this roster? Mm-hmm. If they don't make the playoffs, it's disappointing, but you bring a lot of those guys back into next year. Right. And now you have the opportunity to really do, something special next year. But, again, I think that this team has enough skill and enough talent to compete with just about anybody, if not everybody in the country. Nobody looked exceptional. And I think in the day and age of NIL, it's going to be really hard for a team to be a super deep team as well. So I think that there's fallibility amongst every team in college football right now. So I think the Gators have some flaws, but I think they also have some exceptional talent. And I think they have an opportunity to do big things this year. And you kind of take it one game at a time. You beat USF, you head over to Death Valley, which is always a tough night game, but it's your schedule. You have to beat the teams that are in front of you. So I'm looking forward to this team. Hopefully they can continue to stay healthy and, hopefully they can continue to do the things that we, hope and think that they can. And I'm just really, pumped to watch guys like Vernell Brown, step up. And what can we see out of Dallas Wilson? Because Dallas Wilson was surprising everybody this offseason when he was practicing, right? So you got those guys in and the sky's the limit. So, get a couple of things figured out, special teams, the right side of that offensive line. And, I think the Gators, it's not just that the Gators have to play LSU. It's that, LSU has to play the Gators now.
Exactly. And that's the mentality that Gators fans, Gators players, Gator coaches, everyone needs to go into it with that, these athletes are on social media. They're reading what you're saying, and whether they can mentally block it out or not, they are reading what you are saying to them. And it's like mostly there's so many people being so negative. I'm like, just sit back and enjoy a win. What it was 2 years ago was the last time we got an opening. No, 3 years ago.
3 years ago against Utah. Yeah.
Yeah. We lose the opener to Utah 2 years ago, lose to Miami last year. I don't care if it's LIU. Enjoy the win. We're at least building up. Okay, LIU, USF, and then you go to LSU. But at least we have those games in the beginning to get these guys in game shape and get to feeling like being tackled again, because I don't care who it is. It's a grown man hitting another grown man, and it's not going to feel great. You got to work your body into that. So I love it. I'm not taking it as negative, I guess, as much as my Twitter said that night, but I only said two things.
Easy to get caught up in the moment, brother.
Yeah. But afterwards I got home and I was like, he didn't show his full hand, which is fine. We know he can throw the ball. We know he can put the ball down the field, and we know he's got talented players out there. So it's not something that I'm really stressing. I'll ask you this before I let you go. It's kind of hard to pick this because now I feel like you kind of got an option on offense. So I'm going to take Vernell Brown away from you. Who is going to be your breakout player on offense and your breakout player on defense? And I only took VB3 because I feel like that's an easy target there because he really showed out.
Now, I think, are you talking about for the USF game or the season as a whole?
Just the season as a whole.
I think Jaden Ball, I think a lot of people thought this was kind of a 1A, 1B thing with Jacoby Jackson. If he does what he did, And, a lot of those things were him creating his own lanes and his own yards, right? It wasn't just that there was these massive holes. He was creating them. So I'm going to say that Jaden Ball is going to end up being a household name by the end of the year. And then I mentioned the same guy on defense that I mentioned on Stadium and Gale a couple of weeks ago. I'm going to go with Tyreek Sapp. I think that he's playing for, himself, his family, for the opportunity. And, this is the first time during his entire career at UF, he's played the same position for 2 years in a row. And I think he's going to do outstanding. I mean, I think George Gums, might get more, sacks or tackles for loss just because of his role. But I think that Tyreek Sapp is going to be your breakout defender this season.
Yeah. I've been very big on it. I think that it kind of now it's kind of, I felt like we'd see him a little bit more, was Katie Daniels on offense. I've been very, very high on him. And I still think that you're going to see more from him. I also said Aiden Mizell, but again, we didn't get to see him. But I still do believe that Katie Daniels at some point is you're going to see him get into games. You're going to see him get some plays. And I think you see him break some big ones. But on defense, there's two, but I think Aaron Gates is that guy by the end of the year. He's absolutely my favorite player on the team right now, but also Cormani McClain. That's kind of a hometown homer pick, but I think that you're going to see these guys excel, and it's hard for anyone to even look at the DBs because, again, they didn't throw the ball. I think USF throws the ball more, but you're going to see how talented these guys are when we roll into LSU. They throw the ball. They put the ball in the air. You're going to see what they have to offer. So it's going to be a fun season. I believe that with everything in me.
I think there's I think Bryce Thornton is maybe a name, maybe not as your standout guy. And obviously you saw him with a return touchdown and 2 fumble recovers against LIU. Corey Knowles, Silk mentioned there's a good comp to Ahmad Black. And if he could have a career like Ahmad Black did, or at least a season like Ahmad Black did towards the end of his career, he's going to be a guy that's, he's always around the ball. He plays, he's a bit of a headhunter. He plays always around the ball. So I think that he's kind of an unsung guy that could make a, big impact this year if you're looking for kind of an off the typical name list.
I feel like it's true though. Yeah, it just rings true even against LIU. I don't care who it is. Every time you see the ball in the air or the offense, the opposing team's offense has the ball, Bryce Thornton is somewhere in the vicinity. And that's a big thing that anyone who's ever heard anything about football, one of the most cliche sayings is see ball, get ball. Mm-hmm. And I feel like he lives and dies by it. And that's the biggest thing. It's just if he's around the ball, that's all I need because something good's going to happen.
First guy with a fumble recovery for a touchdown since 2019, and the first guy with 2 fumble recoveries in a game for the Gators since 2021. So if he can do that throughout the rest of the season, that's an unsung hero of the defense.
Yeah, I think it shows too because he reminds me the way he flies around, and I think the Ole Miss game is the one that's really kind of drawing this comparison a little bit to me, but I see him a lot like a Reggie Nelson. He flies around. I mean, he is not scared to throw his body out there. I think you can tell there's a risk reward there that he's throwing himself at the ball to get the turnover. And I think he kind of knows if I miss this, there's a chance they're going, for a huge gain, if not 6. But most of the time he's coming down with the ball. He's going to find it. He's got a knack for it. He has great awareness and just great skills out there to get the ball. And, like Franklin said, he's a magnet to it. And that's huge for me. And who knows, maybe that is the guy who at the end of the season, I think guys like him, Aaron Gates out there, I've seen Cormani do it. He hasn't had fully a chance except for the Kentucky game where they know how to play the ball. They are almost like a receiver out there playing defense, and that's huge. So I can't wait to see where the season goes because I'm on the train of that. It's just going to get crazier. I really do.
Yeah, and I think one of the things to look out for that we saw in this game as well is maybe you might see some more tight end usage this year. And I think if you're talking about an unsung hero of the defense, maybe an unsung hero might be a Hayden Hansen He looks the part, had a good touchdown against LIU. And, if they can get their tight ends out in position to make an impact, which is something we've not really seen under Billy Napier, that opens up a ton of new wrinkles for what this offense could be and what this team could be. So that's another guy to kind of look out for, that maybe, he's not going to win team MVP, but he might just be a guy that makes some impact, makes some important impact, and definitely a team that teams are a guy that teams are going to have to scheme around, that might open an opportunity for, a Dallas Wilson or a J. Michael Sturdivant to make a bigger play, because they've, had to move a safety over the tight end because there's now a receiving threat.
Right. It's funny because I had Dave Waters on here, and one of the big things that we talked about was kind of joking about going 5 wide, like Florida going 5 wide. And we kind of both said, like, oh, wouldn't that be something? Like, wouldn't it be crazy if they went 5 wide? And I'm sitting there on Saturday and I look and I'm like, oh my God, they're 5 wide. Yeah. I was like, I'd never expect that.
First time in Billy Napier's career, probably.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen it at all. And so when he did, I was like, oh my, I was like, all right. And I don't care that he threw a screen pass with it, but at least he was in the formation.
But now teams have to scheme around the idea that the Gators might go 4 wide and they might go 5 wide, and there might be something. So you might see the same play and you might see a screen pass. Again, you might see 3 out of the next 4 be screen passes. You might also see that 5th one be, a 45-yard streak route where they score a touchdown, right? Yep. So there's a lot to be excited about some of the play calls. And, watching on TV, you don't get to see everything the way that you might, during a game about what the offense looks like. But, they're setting things up for the future, and you're putting things on tape that other teams now have to, be cautious about. And who knows, when that next play might happen. The Billy Napier offense has not been run great, but it's not a bad offense if executed well. Now it's just a matter of what kind of wrinkles can you throw in there, to execute and perform at a high level, and, have the horses. Now it's just a matter of doing it.
Yeah. I think that his play calling isn't bad as much as it is that, like, he kind of has some tells where they can call the defense. I think he's got to put a little more looks out there. And I think that's the biggest thing, is I feel like, who knows, if you play high level football, championship level, college, any level in the NFL, it's chess, not checkers. You got certain offenses, yes, like an Ole Miss can go and play checkers against a bad team, but you know what they're bringing to the table the next week. And that's why your Lane Kiffins don't win big games, because they put it all out there. Like, this is what I have to offer. Here you go. Go ahead and watch it on film. And they go, well, yeah, this guy from, this whatever university, I don't want to say nobody university, they're still D1. So, like, kudos to them, but they're a lower level. And it's like, well, yeah, he couldn't cover him, but my D1 here in the SEC, he's going to be able to cover him. And you're showing me what you're doing. Whereas Billy runs 5 wide. So now offenses look at that on tape and go, oh, okay, he ran 5 wide here. Oh, but he only threw a screen pass to Eugene Wilson. He only threw a screen pass here, or whatever the case may be. Okay. Well, now we going against LSU. They go 5 wide, and all of a sudden you run a seam route with Eugene Wilson or Adam Mizell, and you're running post here, and you got movement. And now their defense is like, well, I don't know what to do with this. And it's like, yeah, because we didn't show you anything week 1. And that's when it gets crazy. That's how I'm looking at it. I may be hyping myself up for no reason.
But that's what we do this for. You know what I mean? Like, what excitement can you have if you're not excited just in general, right? Like, about the possibilities, right? We're not the ones calling plays. So, the idea of what the play could be, the idea of what this offense could be, are things to get excited about. And, we've seen some things work out, for the Gators. And, again, they have different horses and different players. And if they get some things down, but that's why you don't want to cast too many aspersions on, week 1, because there's a lot of weeks left to go, and you're not going to see certain things until certain games, or until there's an opportunity where they see a gap in defensive coverages, or they see the way that they, handle this type of play that you might not see. You might see something against USF that you might not see until Texas, or you might not see until Georgia, because of the way the teams handle it. So, sit back, enjoy. It should be an exciting team. I think they're going to put up points. I think they're going to have a fantastic defense. I truly believe from the bottom of my heart that this is a very, very, very good defense, and maybe the best Gators defense that they've had, since the Will Muschamp.
I agree.
Era.
I agree 100%. I think it's going to be a great season. I think that it's just everybody needs to chill. They need to relax, and it's going to be all right. But before I let you get off here, let everybody know where they can find you and where they can follow you at.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, sorry, I've been looking down. If you've been watching on YouTube, I was supposed to be in a fantasy football draft tomorrow, but somehow it got pushed to today. So again, I appreciate it so much. My name's Dan Thompson. You can follow me on Twitter at DK Thompson. I am a co-host and co-founder of Stadium and Gale. We've been a podcast for about 6 years now, talking all things Florida Gators. It's myself, Corey Knowles, Nick Delatorre from Florida Victorious, and former Gator running back and NFL running back Jordan Scarlett. So, man, I appreciate your time and looking forward to catching up at the Texas game.
Of course, man. I appreciate the time. Appreciate you coming on. I appreciate all of you in the comments and just hanging out with me. If you can, leave me a like, drop a sub before you go. I really do appreciate it. But yeah, man, I really, really do. I thank you so much. You guys know how we end it and how we do it here. If you ain't a Gator, y'all know the rest.